Here begins tape number 1 in the videotape deposition of Brian Pagliano in the matter of Judicial Watch Incorporated versus the U.S. Department of State in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. Case number 13-CV-1363. Today's date is June 22nd, 2016. The time on the video monitor is 9:31. The videographer today is Jeremy Deneen, representing Planet Depots. This video deposition is taking place at Planet Depots, 1100 Connecticut Avenue Northwest in Washington, D.C.
Good morning, Mr. Pagliano. I'm Ramona Kotka. I represent Judicial Watch in this lawsuit. Thank you for coming in today. For the record, can you please state your full name?
Brian Michael Pagliano.
Thank you. Mr. Pagliano, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Thank you. Have you ever been deposed in a lawsuit before, a civil lawsuit?
Objection. Instruct the witness not to answer as being outside the scope.
All right. I'll go over some ground rules with you for the deposition, for purposes of the deposition. As you can see, we have a Madam Court Reporter here who will be transcribing everything we're saying today. So I would just ask that we don't speak over each other. I'll do my best to let you answer every question fully. And I just ask that you, although you may anticipate the question, that you just let me fully finish asking the question that I'm going to ask. Is that fair?
Uh-huh.
Okay. The next instruction would be for any responses to be verbal responses.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Also, there may be objections that your attorneys or other attorneys in the room may state for the record. Unless your attorney is instructing you not to answer, you must still answer the question, okay?
Yes.
Okay. And finally, you've been sworn in. You understand that your testimony is taken under oath? Is there any reason why you would not be able to truthfully answer the questions being asked today?
Objection. Outside the scope of permissible discovery, the witness is instructed not to answer.
Whether there's any reason he can't answer the questions truthfully?
I am not going to debate that with you. The witness has been instructed not to answer. Ask your next question.
Okay. Mr. Pagliano, are you currently employed, and if so, where?
Objection. Outside the scope of permissible discovery, the witness is instructed not to answer.
Could you mark this as Exhibit 1? Mr. Pagliano, have you reviewed what's been marked as Exhibit 1?
Ms. Kotka, I will represent you. The witness has, because the subpoena was served on us, the witness has reviewed it and understands it and has discussed it with counsel. Okay.
Well, I'll need the witness to answer and to tell me rather than his attorney.
It is outside the scope of permissible discovery. I've given you the information you need. We've accepted it as a service on his behalf, and I've made the representation to you.
Mr. Pagliano, have you seen this document before here today?
Same. Objection. That is outside the scope of discovery. Instruct the witness not to answer.
This is a subpoena for his testimony here today for the discovery being taken. I don't know how that can be outside the scope of discovery. You've instructed your witness not to answer?
What is your next question?
Other than this document, Mr. Pagliano, have you reviewed any other documents in preparation for today's deposition?
Outside the scope of permissible discovery, the witness is instructed not to answer.
I'm asking for purposes of preparing for his deposition that has been granted by the court for purposes of discovery taken in this case if he has reviewed any other documents. I don't see how that's outside of scope of the discovery in this case.
Not here to debate that with you, Ms. Kotka. The witness has been advised and the objection is on record.
For scope, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Pagliano, are you following your counsel's advice and not answering the question?
Objection for privilege and numerous other reasons. That's outside the scope of discovery, and he is instructed not to answer the question.
And I'm asking if he's refusing to answer the question. Mr. Pagliano, you may answer the question unless your client...
He's been instructed not to answer, and you can't instruct him otherwise.
Mr. Pagliano, have you reviewed the testimony by either Louis Lucan, Stephen Mull, or Karen Lang in the discovery of this case in preparation for your deposition here today?
Same instruction. Outside the scope of the court's order, he is instructed not to answer. Ms. Kotka, if you have questions that are within the scope, we'd be happy to respond to them.
They are within the scope, and I disagree with you that these are not within the scope. All these questions relate directly to what the witness has done to prepare himself for today's deposition, and that has been specifically granted by Judge Sullivan in this case. That's entirely within the scope of discovery in this case.
Do you have another question?
Mr. Pagliano, other than your attorneys, have you spoken with anybody else in preparation for your deposition here today?
The witness is instructed not to answer. It's outside.